So 2 years in a row, I've been gone for a week, and 2 years in a row, Chase has climbed on boxes while I was gone. So I don't know if that's related or not. Good morning. My name is Brendan. I'm one of the pastors here. I'm excited because this is one of the few times of the year that Chase lets me talk for more than a few minutes, because that's how long I get for announcements. And he usually says I talk too long during that, so now I'm going to take the whole message time. So, no, he likes me, I think. Actually, I'm a little bit nervous this time around, if I'm being honest, for two reasons. One, I have to do something I don't really know how to do, and not preach. There's something later. I kind of know how to do this. Sorry, that sounded weird. But the other part is that the last few weeks we've been going through this series on the book of Ecclesiastes, and our series is entitled, What's the Point? And if this is your first week here for the series, just to give you a sense of the vibe, the first message in the series was called Life is Meaningless. So, fun. We've talked about the ways that we try to fill our lives that leave us empty and how fleeting life is. And when I found out this is one of the few times that I was going to preach, was going to be in this series, I was excited. And before you get too worried, I'm going to make you more worried. I consider myself a realist and a little bit of a cynic, sadly. That's the way I'm wired. So getting up here and talking about how pointless life is without Christ is actually right up my alley. That's exciting. But then I saw the topic that Chase assigned to me, and I started reading through my chapter and the passage that we're going to cover this morning, and then I started to get uncomfortable, heebie-jeebies uncomfortable, because rather than talk about how empty and shallow life is outside of Christ, I had to talk about how we need God and other people. I started reading through the chapter, it started off exciting, right? So it started off the chapter, reading verses 1 through 3. I'm like, all right, I think I'm getting the vibe here. Again, I observed all the oppression that takes place under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed, with no one to comfort them. The oppressors have great power, and their victims are helpless. So I concluded that the dead are better off than the living. But most fortunate of all are those who are not yet born, for they have not seen all the evil that is done under the sun. Talk about how evil and terrible the world is apart from Christ. Done. Got it. I'm excited now. We keep reading. Then I observed that most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors. But this too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Fools fold their idle hands, leading them to ruin, and yet better to have one handful with quietness than two handfuls with hard work and chasing the wind. So talk about how envying somebody else is a terrible motivation to work hard. I'm 100% in on that. And then I started to read the passage that we're going to focus on in a little bit, and I really started to get uncomfortable. Because it was about how we need God. Just to put aside the worries, I'm 100% on board with that. We need God, right? But we need others, like other people, like humans. We need other people, or in the words of the author of Ecclesiastes that we'll see later on, it's all meaningless and depressing. So some of you at this point may be a bit concerned that your pastor is people, right? You should be concerned. If you're not concerned, check, are you listening? I'm telling you that I don't like people, but I actually do love people. People are great. They're very entertaining. They're very encouraging. They're very interesting. And a lot of good things have happened in my life because other people are a part of it. But people are also annoying, frustrating, confusing, and a lot of terrible things have happened in my life and in the world as a result of people. But on the whole, I would say that I'm down for sharing the planet with other people. Just as a coverall, I will share the world with you, all right? But it's this whole needing part that literally makes me shudder. And I kid you not, I've practiced this, I've done it in first service. I physically have a reaction every time I say I need other people. It's that uncomfortable for me. Because I'm what I would call annoyingly independent. And my wife's camping, so she can't corroborate that right now, but I am annoyingly independent. There's little ways that shows up. I once spent months internally processing whether I should become a pescatarian, which means I only eat fish and not the other meats. But I didn't tell anybody in my family that I was thinking about it, and I just walked home one day and was like, I'm a pescatarian. And there was hamburgers for dinner, and my wife was like, not today. So in little ways, yeah. In little ways, like that, my family had to like change our meal plans for, I lasted like a good year plus on that. And we ate around it, but my wife would have liked a heads up on my thought process there. So like, that's a little one. Sometimes it puts me in physical danger. Like when I tried to lift a dryer on a dolly up from the basement by myself. And I realized that I could get all the way to the top step using leverage, not strength, because I don't have any of that, but using leverage until you get to the end. And then, I don't know if you know this about a dolly, but when you put a flat object on something like this and the weight is low, it just wants to slide down the stairs. So I got stuck at the top of the stairs with my feet on either side of the door jamb, my arms wrapped around the dolly, just holding it. And that's bad enough, right? Like, that's silly. Like, I now either have to decide whether I want to hurt my back or hurt my house. But then my kids are like in the other room because I thought, what good dad am I that I can like let them play by themselves? Why take a dryer up the stairs? So my son comes up and says, hey, Dad, you need help. And so he helped me, called my friend who had offered to help me later, but I'm annoyingly independent, so I wanted to do it right then. So that almost caused me and my house physical harm. He just walked up and went like that. So I think it was maybe more of a strength issue than a leverage one. Dryers aren't that heavy. Washers, they're heavy. So, needless to say, when I looked at this passage, it felt like it was kind of speaking directly to me. And I don't think Chase did that on purpose. I don't think he has an understanding of my deep-rooted needs and fears. But I do think God had an idea of what he wanted me to chew on for a couple weeks here. But I also think that he doesn't want to just talk to me, because I think we all wrestle to a certain degree with annoying independence. Like, we want to do things on our own. It's not just a reminder that I need people, but this passage is a recognition that we all need God and we all need other people. Buried in this harsh language of meaninglessness and depressing verbiage is this hope that we can hold on to, that God has placed people in our lives and that he is part of our lives and he will not fail us, as we prayed. Or as we sang, I should say. I just prayed it in my head. So I've enjoyed diving into this book because it's oddly specific. If you've read other wisdom literature, it's pretty general. Like if you look at the book of Proverbs, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction, right? Great verbiage, like put that like at the foundation of who you are and you're going to be in good shape, but it's foundational. Like it's not very specific. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Big idea, but not like, it doesn't give you like, what does that mean exactly? You have to chew on these things. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. This is the idea that we do need people, but like for a very general purpose of growing in our faith, growing in our understanding of who God is and following him. But when you read the book of Ecclesiastes, the preacher or teacher, as they call the person in the very beginning of the book, gives attention to very specific and unique situations that I think help us chew on a little bit more how to deal with the unique realities that we all have to walk through in our lives. So it starts in verse 7, and it follows the pattern. I observed yet another example of something meaningless under the sun. This is the case of a man who is all alone, without a child or a brother, yet who works hard to gain as much wealth as he can. But then he asks himself, who am I working for? Why am I giving up so much pleasure now? It's all so meaningless and depressing. I really like the ESV translation of this for two reasons. Again, I saw vanity under the sun, one person who has no other, either son or brother, yet there is no end to all his toil, and his eyes are never satisfied with riches, so that he never asks, for whom am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure? This is also vanity and an unhappy business. I just like that regal language, and also, he's working so hard, he doesn't even think about why. This person is trying to gather so much stuff in life, he doesn't even ask, why am I doing this? Who am I doing this for? This person is so caught up in trying to build up their own accounts, their own storehouses, that he never stops to ask, who am I doing this for? If he's doing it for himself, he's left no time for himself to enjoy it. And if he's doing it for somebody else, there's nobody else there to share it with. And it's an echo of a sentiment earlier in Ecclesiastes where it says, I came to hate all my hard work here on earth, for I must leave to others everything I've earned. And who can tell whether my successors will be wise or foolish? Yet they will control everything I have gained by my skill and hard work under the sun. How meaningless. So I gave up in despair, questioning the value of all my hard work in this world. This idea of we can't take it with us, right? Not only can we not take it with us, But when our time on earth is done, all the things that we've accumulated, all the things that we've gained of our own hard work is going to get passed on to someone. And there's no guarantee that they will do what we will do with it. There's no guarantee that's how they're going to handle it. And whether they're wise or foolish is completely out of our control. But they still have control of everything that we have worked for, everything that we have earned. That reality causes the author to question whether all the work is really worth it. Should I just give up? However much we try to protect our worth, our what we accumulate, it's eventually beyond our control. We can get caught up in our pursuit of more to the point that we never look around and stop and ask, why am I doing this? Who am I doing this for? The pursuit can become so all-consuming that we don't have the capacity to even enjoy the blessings that we have in our life. And when it's all said and done, eventually it's going to be in somebody else's hands, and they're going to either be wise or foolish, and you don't even know what's going to happen. It's all meaningless and depressing. Woo! But the depressing meaninglessness of it all, this is where we joked and Stephanie, like, I feel like I got one of the good ones because it's going to get happier now. Those verses are put in contrast with the situation that follows. If it is in vain, if it's this passing vapor with no real substance to work for the sake of your own gain when you have no time to enjoy it or no one to share it with, there is a better way. Two people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm, but how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. It's a simple but a powerful premise. Two are better than one. Why? Because they can help each other. And the writer gives very specific examples. Like, this is where it's different than Proverbs. I won't say better, just very specific. If one person falls, presumably into a hole, they don't say, I'm just assuming that if it's not a falling down, I can't get up kind of situation. It's like, oh, I fell in a hole. The other can reach out and help. At 5'6", I would need a lot of help, no matter the size of the hole. All right? Two people lying close together can keep each other warm. If you're cold, you can't make yourself warm. This won't work, only work to a certain degree. You need somebody else to help you. Two can stand back to back and conquer. If you're attacked, you can stand back to back and you can win. If you're alone, it's the exact opposite, right? Someone who falls alone is in real trouble. If you walk by a hole at any point in the next weeks, months, years, just check and make sure I'm not in it, all right? How can one be warm alone? You can't. A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated. If you get attacked when you're alone, it's going to be easy to surround you. These are all incredibly practical reasons why it's good to have another person just like with you at all times. But we could also add examples of our own, right? So in the Brendan translation or the edition, like if the verse B or whatever you want to call it, if you are trying to move a dryer up the stairs from the basement by yourself, you risk bodily and home harm. But if you invite a friend into the process, they will easily lift it up with you. Like that's my addition to it. Or if you're trying to put together a greenhouse from reclaimed windows and you want to saw off a board above your head that is not attached to anything, you risk breaking the windows, but if someone is there to hold the board, then everything will be okay. Not me. I won't say who it was, but it's not me. I just don't want to take credit for that one. This one is me, and it's very sad. If one tries to hook up a trailer to their new truck and forgets to jack up the jack part of it, that's the jack? Okay, thank you. I just need help with that part. Because you shouldn't be able to do the verb of the thing. English is weird, right? So you jack up it was so high, this person lifted it onto the truck and didn't jack it up and then drove through their front yard while the jack dug a trench behind them, which would be fine. Like, I don't care about my yard that much. But the internet line was between my house and the pole. So this person just straight up. I can't look at you all, I'm ashamed. this person lost internet in their home for 3 days, and their kids were like, what have you done? It was me, in case you hadn't figured that out yet. My son, it was like, wait, does that mean I can't play Rocket League? First concern. First concern. First concern. No, you can't play Rocket League, and also I can't stream my show. So, two people means that you have another set of eyes that go, hey, you're good. Anyway. So these are practical examples. We recognize the need for other people in our lives, right? Like just having another set of hands, another set of eyes, a better brain. Despite how practical the teacher is being, though, these aren't the only ways that we need other people. These aren't the only way that we need other people. Each of these situations points toward a deeper need that we have for other people to support and encourage us through all of life's ups and downs. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help, but someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Yes, the teacher is talking about falling into a hole. It would be way worse to do that on your own than if you had somebody walking alongside you to throw you a rope. But it goes deeper than that. Having someone next to us is about more than being rescued from physical danger. It's about when we get stuck in those holes, the metaphorical ones, where we're alone, that we're in real trouble. We need people to help us combat the negative patterns of thinking that we have, the harmful patterns of behavior, the circumstances that would dishearten us. On our own, we get pulled down and we get pulled into these cycles that become harder and harder to escape. But when we have someone next to us to throw us a lifeline and pull us out of that, we get pulled out of the holes. Likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? Yes, the teacher is saying that having a human blanket would be very helpful. The power went out in our camper this week, and my daughter was very afraid of that, and I can assure you that humans are very warm. And when the AC in your camper is out, you do not want a warm human sleeping next to you. It's not fun, but they are warm in times of cold. But we also need people that will step next to us and warm us against the coldness of our own hearts sometimes, or warm us against the coldness in this world that we're a part of. When our hearts become cold against the circumstances and the people around us, we need other people that will show us the light, will show us the warmth that we need to remind us that this world is a good place, that relationships and people are a good thing. On our own, we can buy into the narrative that will cause us to be cynical and separate ourselves from the world. But when there are people in our lives speaking hope and life, we're not going to cut ourselves off. We're going to embrace it. It's going to be messy and hard, but we're going to step into that with other people because there is warmth, there is light. A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Yes, the teacher is telling us that in the event that you and a comrade are attacked by a group of foes, back to back is the best defensive position. Action movies have taught us nothing if not that, right? If there's a action comedy duo, at some point they will stand back to back. It's because this is a tried and true method of self-defense. But there are other kinds of attacks that we can conquer when we have someone else standing beside us, willing to wade into that battle with us. They will speak the truth against the lies that blindside us. When circumstances or even people are conspiring against us, they will be by our side and help us make it through. People standing back to back are uniquely positioned to see our shortcomings, see the things that we can't, and ward off attacks that we would otherwise be caught off guard by. So we need each other for very practical reasons like holes and warmth and attacks. But we need them for very personal reasons that we need to be pulled up, reasons that we need to be shown light and warmth, reasons that we need to see behind us, if it's not your mom, like you can't see behind yourself, right? So you need somebody else standing there. The final verse of this passage seems like it's kind of stating the obvious. 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. 3 is better than 2, and we've already established that 2 is better than 1, right? So that's an extra person to pick you up when you fall, an extra human blanket to be there when you need them. And how awesome does the idea of the sequel of the action movie where they bring in the third person and they all stand back to back? No one's winning. Like no one's defeating that trio of back to back to back. But what if it's just not about having another warm body? The final addition to the trio isn't another BFF. It's God. God has to be the third strand in this braid. He's the third braid that strengthens the cord exponentially. At my wedding, which happened 14 years ago as of this coming Tuesday. Yeah. Woo, she's not here, so you don't have to clap. You clap for her. You ask me questions about how I got that far and how she's put up with me. You congratulate her when she's here next week. I'm much harder to deal with, I promise. So the pastor asked us to do this as part of the ceremony. He prepped us ahead of time. He didn't spring this on us, and that's good because what we found out as he told us about it is that I have no idea how to braid. None at all. So as a terrible metaphor for our marriage, during the ceremony, I held the ring and Krista did all the work. So that's not how it actually is, just as it was a metaphor at the wedding. But despite my lack of braiding knowledge, I did understand the assignment because we talked about it in our pre-marriage counseling. And he told us that our two lives were now going to become one. There would be this joining of our lives. We'd be together and we would be better off for it. We would have in richer and poorer, in sickness and health, for better or for worse, till death do you part, right? That idea, having somebody alongside of you is a good and exciting thing. It's pretty amazing. Because on our own, we're pretty susceptible, right? When I'm pulling out a knife, I will keep it up here. It's just for a moment. If I hurt myself, is there an EMT? All right, Chase is one. When we fall into a hole, or we're cold, or we're feeling attacked, and we're on our own, there's no defense. There's nothing we can do about it. We're very susceptible. Oh, it works so much better in first service. I can do it. Yes. Pay no mind to that. When we fall short, when we face challenges, our weakness is easily exposed when we're on our own. The pastor told us together, we would be stronger. So that when inevitably we fell into the holes, when we struggled with finances, or we struggled with relationships or job searches or whatever it may be, when we struggled with our internal hearts, when our family became the struggle, we would be together. And because we were together, we would be stronger. The rope's pretty long. We would be stronger, and we'd be able to ward off some of the attacks. Some of the holes we'd dig each other out of, we'd help. Some of the warmth, when I needed light and she needed light, we would be there to show them the light and warmth. And when we were attacked and we had to leave churches and we had to do hard things, we were there to stand next to each other. And we could withstand it. But it still wasn't as strong as it could have been. There were times when both outside of our marriage and inside of our marriage, we were the ones bringing pain on each other. And it would fail at times. On our own, standing just side by side. I couldn't rely on her to be my everything, and she couldn't rely on me to be her everything. Our pastor was telling us that to really succeed, we needed somebody else to be intertwined into our relationship. It wasn't until we wound our individual lives and our life together around Jesus and our pursuit of him that our relationship would truly be strong and endure. And I told you I had to do something I don't know how to do. I still don't know how to braid. So I'm going to try and talk and braid, and we're just going to ignore how loose it is. My daughter has short hair. When we fell into those holes, and we weren't there to pull each other out, we had God to rely on. When the world felt cold and we didn't understand why bad things were happening or difficult things were happening, and it felt like we couldn't figure this out on our own, we had Jesus. When we were being attacked by people that we thought cared about us and were questioning our faith, questioning our relationship with God, We had him to hold us strong. I'm glad my daughter doesn't have hair this long. There's something different about Jesus being in your life. Now, I could wrap this chain around one string and it would be strong and it wouldn't break, because our relationship with God is that strong, right? No one else, no one above God, right? There's no one like him. This is the one that will not fail. But if we just did that on our own, our relationship not being centered on that, we would have failed. We needed our relationship to be intertwined with our personal and our corporate relationship with him. It didn't mean that challenges and other attacks didn't come. They did. It just meant that when they did, he was there to take us through, to be stronger than we could be on our own, to endure when we couldn't, to see the things and help us get through the things that we wouldn't have been able to on our own. If we had relied on our own strength, our marriage would have failed. But because we rely on him every single day, she can put up with me, we can parent 3 kids, we can deal with life's ups and downs. We have the strength of a perfect and holy God in our marriage, woven into the very fabric of our relationship. That would be the source for living our lives, separately and together, without being defeated. And that was our source for loving each other well. Now, I recognize that marriage is a really unique relationship. And for some people, marriage is actually a painful thing to think through and talk about because it wasn't built that way and it failed. I'm the son of a twice divorced woman. I saw strength in her that I didn't see in marriage, right? But God doesn't want to just be involved in marriages that way. And that's why it's not just a message for people who are in relationships. It's a message for all of us. He wants to be interwoven into all of our relationships, every single one. Yes, a life laboring on our own with no one to work alongside or share in the joy of your efforts is meaningless and depressing. The author says so. Having people alongside us to co-labor with us and share in the spoils of our efforts brings us joy and meaning, not only to relationships, but to our lives. That gives us new purpose and hope. But when God is at the center of any and all of our relationships, we see their true strength and endurance. It's the thing that makes our relationship with God strong. When Jesus steps in and takes our broken relationship with God and takes himself to the cross and bridges that gap, he gives us the strength of a relationship with God that will endure. It's not based on anything we can do. It's always based on him. But because we aren't built on what we provide one another, when relationships aren't built on what we provide one another, but they're built on how we can live out the love that Jesus has shown us, they can be strong and they can endure. He loved us so much that he willingly went to the cross to die a death we deserved so that the relationship could be bridged. Will we do that in our relationships? Are we willing to sacrifice? Are we willing to do the hard things so that somebody else might be lifted up? Because that's the example Christ has given us. With the love of Christ woven into all our relationships, we have the capacity to live out the greatest commandment. The most important commandment is this: listen, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And you can't do it without Jesus. You need to wrap your own life around the chain, the strength of Christ. But the second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. When we weave our relationship with Jesus into our individual and corporate relationships, we're able to love others the way that he has loved us. Without that, we cannot do it. Within our own power, we will fall short every single time. We are a string that will be cut, if not the first time, eventually. The writer of Ecclesiastes ends with this conclusion that we will undoubtedly become very familiar with by the end of the series. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. This is the path to a life that is not meaningless and depressing. In your own life, have you wrapped your life around the truth of who Jesus is and what he's done for you? That needs to start there. That, if you haven't done that yet, search yourself, ask, God, where am I getting my strength from? Because everything else is meaningless and depressing. But if I can wrap myself around you, I have a chance to endure, to have the strength of relationship that I need. But this formula isn't just how to do it individually, but we're called to do it together. We're called to wrap our individual lives around the strength of Christ and then do it together. Imagine how much stronger. I don't have enough time to wrap all the chains together. When two people who are intertwining their lives with Christ then intertwine their lives together, how strong that would be. Don't try to do life on your own. Do it with other people alongside you who will fight off the danger, who will keep you warm, who will pull you up out of the holes of life. Because when you start doing it together, embracing our need for God and our need for other people, we start doing life in a way that is joyful and meaningful. We start seeing his plans and purposes for us as individuals and for our relationships. And it's hard. It takes authenticity. It takes vulnerability. You have to be real with people to build life this way. You have to be honest. You can't hide it away. But when you do, when you open yourself up to a relationship that is authentic before God and authentic with other people, you will see the strength of a chain enduring all life pitfalls and attacks. It's worth it. And it's the way God has called us to live out our relationships. Let's pray. God, we thank you, first and foremost, for our relationship possibility with you, God. That through your Son, you have made a way for us to be in a relationship with you. And Jesus, that you would go to the cross willingly to die the death we deserved so that relationship might be possible. Lord, we don't want to lose sight of that. Lord, but we also look around in our lives, in this room even maybe, and see people that you've brought into ours, into our lives, into our circles, into our spheres of influence, God. And we pray that you would help us identify the people that we can interweave our lives with around you, that we might be stronger together. That one by themselves is trouble. That we're not meant to do this life alone. And that two is better. That having people alongside us to do helpful things and practical things and personal things is helpful. But God, more than anything, that when we create that three-stranded braid, when we wrap our lives and our relationships around you, we know they are strong and they will endure. Lord, help us see the people that we can trust with that level of vulnerability, that level of authenticity. Lord, that we could step into that kind of relationship with people who might help us see and know you better and help us show the world a God who loves and cares and wants to be in a relationship with them. Lord, we thank you and we praise you. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.